Welcome viewers to another very special episode of Your Britain. Yes, Your Britain, every Monday 5 p.m. UK time, only on Kanshi TV, your number one entertainment channel right across the globe, broadcasting to over 180 countries. And for that reason, as always, we have a special guest in the studio where we discuss issues affecting and reflecting all our communities here in the UK and of course right across the globe. And as I said, we're going to be talking about something very, very serious, which we have been talking about for the last couple of months or so, COVID-19, which is affecting every single one of us in one way or another. We have lost so many lives here in the UK. In fact, all around the world, we are losing people on a daily basis. Children are fearing for their lives. Adults are fearing for their lives. You have the old age pensioners who are fearing for their lives. In fact, everybody at this particular moment is fearing of what will happen in the next coming weeks, months, and who knows, maybe even years, the way things are going. We've seen here in the UK that Wales have gone into a lockdown. We've seen Scotland, some parts of it in lockdown, Ireland in lockdown, and no doubt, maybe I could be wrong, and I hope I am wrong, but it looks very likely that in the West Midlands, particularly in Birmingham and surrounding areas, we'll be in a lockdown very soon. But who knows what's going to happen. But the main problem at this particular moment is families are struggling, businesses are struggling, schools are struggling, nurseries are struggling, religious institutions are struggling. People right across the board are struggling at this particular moment. We've had many businesses who have lost their customers, who have basically put the shutters on. They cannot operate. They have no financial income. Of course, the government is supporting us, whether you're self-employed or whether you're running a business. But for how long? And how much are they supporting us? Can we really continue to survive? And for that reason, I have a very, very special guest in the studio with me. You have probably seen her in many of my TV programs before. A very, very good friend of mine in the name of Zoe Bennett, Businesswoman of the Year 2017. Believe you me, I couldn't actually find anybody better who can discuss this program this evening, particularly when it comes to the impact of businesses, how businesses right across the board have been affected, and they will continue to be affected in the next coming weeks and months. Not forgetting, we got Christmas coming very soon, just over a month and a half, 2 months. We've got many other events which are taking place, which have been cancelled this year due to COVID, but which will be taking place next year. But again, who knows? They might not. So there are many questions I'm going to go through with Zoe and find out what her perspective is, what her views and personal opinions are. Let me also remind you viewers, Our Britain, you can watch the repeat shows every Friday 2 p.m. UK time. So please make sure that you do watch the repeat programs, and you can also see on social media websites, on YouTube, on Facebook, on the official channel of Kanshi TV. You have many other ways of making sure that you do not miss Your Britain. And Your Britain is the only program where every week we discuss issues that really affect us. Last week, you remember, we discussed a very serious issue where we had one of our guests where children were abused right across the globe, particularly in the Indian and the Asian and the African sub, where children were used and abused. So that was something that we touched upon, and I promised you that we'll be doing more programs which really affect us. My job here is to make sure that we can highlight programs which no other channel or which no other host or presenter maybe does not have the courage to do that. But when it comes to Your Britain, when it comes to myself, I always make sure that these points are raised and so people are aware of what's going on. Just before I do that, before I go to my main guest, I'm going to also introduce you to a young man in the name of Hasnain Iqbal. He has always had the courage to come live on TV and talk about the effects, particularly the effects of COVID-19, of how he feels. We were talking off air before, and he stated his some of his concerns, but let's find out. Just in a few minutes, we'll give this young man a chance to express his views and opinions. And there are many youngsters who watch this program, because we know, due to our research, that people from all backgrounds, from all communities, highly rate this program and watch this on a regular basis. Zoe, first of all, let me welcome you to Your Britain, and let me welcome you to Kanshi TV.
Thank you for having me.
You're always welcome, as you know. Thank you very much. I know you're a very busy lady, but of course, our communities come first. We have to take time out for them. Our businesses are struggling dramatically at this particular moment. We've lost one of our great business empires, I would say, Mr. Nazir Awan. You probably remember last year and a half, I interviewed him 2 or 3 times on my show, and his son Amar as well. But basically, this was going back when we had the issues of the leaving the European Union, and unfortunately we've lost him in COVID, and we've lost many other people right across the board. If we start mentioning names, we'll be here all night mentioning names of people. We've lost really empires, people who had grip on the community. We've lost people like them. But just before I come on to you, we're gonna ask this young man how his feelings are, and then of course we'll pick up from there, because as I said, this is not just affecting. When this started a couple of months back in March, we were told, Zoe, very clearly that this is only going to affect people over 60 or 70, if you remember. Then it was changed to people who were medical reasons, who were more vulnerable. It will affect them. Then it was changed to people in the mid-ages. Now it's changed to people in the young teens and youngsters and so on. So basically, we're not here to say whether the government got it right or wrong. We're not in that position. But what we are here to say is how can we continue to protect ourselves in the coming future. 0121 502 4304 is the live studio number. By all means, you can participate in this program. Asnen?
Yeah.
First of all, COVID-19, this has been mentioned to you many times in your school. Your parents have told you about COVID-19, and I'm sure you are hearing this in the news and so on as well. How are you feeling at this particular moment? You're almost a 9-year-old child. How are you feeling about COVID-19?
I'm feeling worried.
Right.
People serious might catch it, and everybody around the globe.
Right. When you go to school, before March, when this started, your schools, you used to mingle with your friends, you used to talk to your friends, you used to go and touch stuff in the playground, in the classrooms and so on. How are you feeling now? Are you seeing any changes since COVID is coming? How is your school cooperating and coping with this? And how are you responding to that?
Yeah, it's all different. Lunch is different, playtime different. Everything work different. We have to do certain stuff. We have to, in certain bubbles, we can't cross anything else,
Do you really miss playing closely with your friends?
Yeah, because I play football a lot and that's contact. But now when I play football, we can't do that. We just have to pass the ball and run.
Right, so you're not allowed to touch anybody in school.
Yeah.
And what about for lunch times and so on? How are you, before you used to line up and go to your canteen and have lunch, how is the school system changed now?
They used to give us just normal plates. Now they have to give us trays. They have to give us different meals. They didn't do it how they used to do it. When they just gave us a plate and we sat down. And
also, before COVID, when it used to come to holidays, you used to go out, whether it used to be in the UK, and I know you were talking about Butlins and other holidays which you really enjoy, you used to go out. But now that COVID is, in force, how are you feeling when you're missing out on your holidays, particularly in the half terms? You're stuck at home, parents are fearing to take out the children are fearing to go out. How are you coping at the moment?
Yeah, I'm feeling worried, and I was meant to go on a holiday with my dad on Christmas. Now I can't go. Turkey.
Right.
And I was meant to go with my brother as well. Now I can't go anymore because we have to self-isolate inside the house.
Right, okay. And also, there are many children who are watching this program now. What's your message to those children? How can you advise them to keep themselves isolated and to keep themselves at distance from other children and from other members of the community? What would you like to say to all those youngsters who are watching you?
Stay safe, wash your hands, and make sure you stay away from your friends. And listen to your teachers if you're at school as well.
And listen to your parents.
Yeah, they help you take social distancing from your friends. You can't touch them. You can't play tig with them. We can't even touch like hula hoops and stuff. We can't touch the football. So the teachers wear gloves and then they throw the football in the air. so we can't just pick teams anymore. So yeah.
And I bet you're dying for this COVID to finish so you can get on with your normal lives and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, I'm still really sad about the holiday I went. I planned it for so long.
Okay.
My brother, and now we can't go anymore.
Right, okay. Right. We're going to come back to you really shortly.
Yeah.
We've got a couple of more questions for you. So we're going to give you a little break.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for participating in Your Britain and for conveying your message to thousands of youngsters who are watching us. And then we'll get back to you very shortly, okay? Right, Zoe, there you go. That was Hassan and Iqbal. You've heard how youngsters are feeling at this particular moment. Young as 9 who are fearing for this COVID-19 of how they can differentiate themselves within families, within schools, within communities. What's going on?
It is very uncertain, as you know, and it's actually trickled down from the adults now into the children, because my child in particular, she's gone through so much anxiety over the COVID period when it initially started, because it was the unknown. Some people are afraid of the unknown, and and the scaremongering every single day. There was something on the television. So in order to try and get some form of normality, as much as COVID for this moment is not going anywhere, it's about trying to adapt and helping your children to adapt. And that's what the teachers have been doing, within the schools, as he was saying, with the gloves, etc. Things can still progress and keep going forward, but you just got to learn how to adapt to it. And that's no different in the world of business, in an adult world too.
You see, let me just remind you this, that we're going back to the figures that we were going back in March, in April, 300 plus at this particular moment. That's where we're reaching to, not exactly over that, but around that sort of figure. Going back a couple of months, we were down to 8, 6, 10. Now we've jumped up almost to 300.
But they did say there was going to be a second wave. So, it's about the first time we weren't really that prepared for it. We didn't have an idea what it was or what we could do. But now we do have some form of ideas, the regular washing hands, the distancing. There are certain things that we can do. We can self-isolate. We can actually do that ahead of someone telling us to. But there's more precautions that can be taken. It's just a case of everyone needs to do that, not just some, and that's where the problems occur. That's why you'll find the spikes in certain areas as opposed to not in some areas, because some people are adamant that this doesn't even exist, or it's not that serious, or it's conspiracy, lots of different theories, or it happened to somebody else, not me. So we were talking about it
happened to certain communities,
and that
from
too.
certain backgrounds, certain races it happens to.
Exactly,
So let me just draw your attention to what happened in Wales a couple of days back. It's on a lockdown at this particular moment while we're speaking. Do you believe that rather than pinpointing and rather than picking and choosing, where we can see a dad but we can't see a mom, we can see 3 people but we can't see 6 people, and so on, all the different rules and regulations that are coming in. We can go to a pub but we can't go into a garden, and so on, there are so many. Question is, do you believe that we should be following Wales?
Well, to be fair, consistency is the only thing that's going to help us through this. The other countries have done that. Italy and various other countries, China, have kept it consistent. And look, they're so much further forward than we are. If you have it, this is just logical. If you have an area that's on lockdown and an area that's not on lockdown, you're bound to get cross-contamination. So how is it benefiting anybody? If you're going to do something, you either go all in, or you don't do it at all. So, it's the same with testing. That was never happening in the beginning, and now testing's happening. We're finding more people have got COVID, but that's only because, not probably because there's more COVID out there, it's because it was never being tested to begin with.
You see, the problem now is when it comes down, particular your interest, when it comes to the world of business, because obviously you've been in it for many, many years, many awards, many communities that you represent. Now, the matter of fact for the government is very simple, that we cannot lock down the whole country. They've made that very clear. The Prime Minister has made that very clear. And for 1 second, viewers, I'm not saying the Prime Minister hasn't done a great job. He's doing a great job. He's done a great job. And no doubt he will continue to do a great job. He's supported everybody, whether it's been through fellowship, whether it's been through self-employment basis. People were getting some sort of financial reward to continue, or grants and so on, or loans to continue their normal day-to-day life. Of course, it wasn't 100%, but it's better than nothing. And we just remind people, excuse me, this is the only country in the world that is paying you by sitting at home. There is no other country. Maybe I could be wrong, but please, if I am, do inform me. But according to my knowledge, this is the only country in the world that is paying you to sit at home and continue with your daily life due to COVID. And even without COVID, it's the only country which is a state benefit country which is paying benefits. Right. Zoe, the question now is that businesses are at this particular moment suffering big time. We've heard reports on radio, TV, social media. A lot of the businesses have drawn their shutters. They can't operate. Simple as that. How do you foresee this in the coming future? Now, you expressed your point when you said that either it should be a completely lockdown, or there shouldn't be a lockdown. But the matter of fact is, when we've got millions of viewers watching us and everybody has their own opinion and over 180 countries watching us, some might agree to some extent with you. Some might say, well, no, we want the economy to run, even if it's on slow pace. And some might say, absolutely, Zoe, your opinion is fine. Shut the place down and let's get this get it done and over with once. What do you think?
Well, think about this then. If we don't get on top of this, it's going to keep on going beyond this year.
Right.
And it probably won't even end next year. There's still going to be so many restrictions. If you can contain something and you can get it to a point where we can get to some form of normality once again, isn't the economy going to thrive even better? But then on the flip of that, right now, yes, there are businesses closing, but at the same time, I'm seeing lots of businesses booming right now. Because they're learning to diversify.
Other than in other cities, many will agree with me that it's becoming ghost towns. Some of the high streets are becoming ghost towns. We've got buildings to let for sale. Almost every second shop, every third shop has got a board outside for sale to let. Now, as I said, many people will agree with your opinion or your own experience, but many people would say, we are already suffering. Do we need to suffer more?
Well, the thing is, the people that are not suffering more because even though the high streets are shutting down, they're moving online. And online is actually, as much as you don't see them visibly, they are still there in the background and still probably with less overheads and accruing a lot more revenue as a result of, and more profits as a result of not having so many overheads with staffing, with buildings, etc., where you normally would have.
You see, one can argue that the online business might be good for bigger companies, Zoe, the ones that you are involved with, or do some sort of training with them and so on. You have so much knowledge in that sector. But what about the corner shop? What about the small businesses? Them are the ones who are crying at this particular moment. We're not having people like Amazon crying, £6 billion turnover. We're not having people like Google or these people. They're making millions. In fact, for them, this is worked out in their favour, this COVID-19. What happens to Uncle Joe or Uncle Kai, Uncle Smith?
Okay, well, I've sat with one of the uncles this week. Last week as it goes. And lots of uncles.
What happens to them?
So they're actually going online. I've sat with one, literally looking at the marketing plan, and they're on eBay, they're on Amazon. They are themselves on there, and they are doing quite well because they are not looking at this that it's over. They're looking at what can we now do to make the best out of a bad situation. So they are. Trust me, I've got clients I mentor, and my mentee clients, they're online, they're doing a lot more, and they're being more inventive, and actually it's helping with their personal branding and the company branding, whereas before it would take a lot longer to get there. This now, we're in a time of your TikToks, your Instagrams, your Facebooks, and it's actually helping these businesses. There's lots of small businesses just shooting up out of nowhere. Why? Because everyone's now doing products, or whatever they do have, a service is online, and they're actually doing it via Zooms, via any kind of video call conferencing right now.
You see, those ones who have got a bit of knowledge working with computers and online and so on with gadgets are fine. But the ones that we've spoken to, and we conduct our researches before we come live on air, we speak to many people, whether it's businesses or individuals, and some of the ones that we've spoken to, Zoe, they can hardly write the name on a laptop or something like that.
But that's fine for those kind of businesses. And I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you how we help them. It's again the same business principle. If you are doing so well and you are great in one area of your business, you're never going to be good in all parts of your business. What do? You outsource, don't you? If you're not an accountant, you get yourself an accountant. If you're not great at admin, you get yourself a PA. So it's no different. You can get somebody who actually understands the world of technology and actually appoint them to do that element of your business. So it is no different of going online. There's places online that you can go to for who actually pitch their businesses, what they do as services, and it's affordable. So there are ways. It's just a case of if you've got a fixed mindset, you're not going to have a growth mindset, and that's the bottom line in business, irrespective of the COVID or any time.
Let me just draw your attention to today's news. You probably heard this, or maybe you've missed it. But Boots, of course, they've come out with this new venture that you pay us £120 and we'll do a test for you, and that this test will only apply to people who think, not the people that are affected or people who have signs, but to those people who think, maybe for me, I'm thinking I might have COVID. So therefore, I go straight to Boots, I'll pay £120 and I get my results in a couple of hours or minutes or whatsoever. I think Boots is doing fine. It's a multi-millionaire company, for example, because it's a breaking news today. But as I come back to my point, Uncle Joe hasn't got £1 million investment in a business.
Knowledge is power. I've actually sat with someone again last week, and they're doing more PPE, for argument's sake. They're doing the most, and they're not a big company. They're a small in comparison to the big boys, and they're doing very well out of this. So it's a case of not looking on the negative side, or what we're not doing, what we're not getting, and what's so wrong right now. It's a case of just changing the way we're thinking. There's got to be a way out of every situation. There's always a solution. Even if it's a difficult solution to get there, there's always something. So instead of looking at the negatives of what we were struggling with, look at what you can do to help yourself to get out of a situation. That's the only thing we can do right now.
I'm going to come on to the food business in a second, but just before I do that, your honest opinion, how do you foresee businesses generally right across the board when we are struggling at this particular moment? We've got lockdown rules and regulations which we have to follow by law. There's no option about that. How do you really and honestly foresee the business in the next 6 to 12 months? 6 months, why? Because till March we've been told, I think it's March or April, we've been told that we're going to continue with this, and then from March, April onwards to the end of the year almost. How are you seeing 2021?
I tell you this, I can see businesses not succeeded if they expect to do the same thing over and over and expect a different outcome, because the situation's changed. And those that actually change with the situation are going to have longevity. And I'm actually seeing it. Because like I said, my clientele, I consult. So I see the businesses from small businesses to the larger businesses. And it is all about looking at options and creating those options for themselves. The ones that don't, and they usually, oh, well, I'm a small business, that's an excuse. There are ways to get around it.
The problem is, many of them also put argument forward, which we've spoken to a few businesses locally. They're saying the Europe situation doesn't help us at all. And then we've got the COVID on top, which has come into force a couple of months back. Really, by leaving Europe, do you think that's really going to affect us as well? Just generally, going off the track just for a second.
Leaving Europe is always going to affect us. We have a lot of support from the European Union, which again, it's not going to be there. The amount of grants that lots of small businesses in particular relied on, the tendering process, is not going to be there. However, you can't do anything about that. All you can now do is create a solution for yourself, and that's all I can keep telling people is stop looking at what you can't do for right now, what's not there for you. Look at what you can create. I've seen a business who was doing lots of clothing. Now they're doing perfume. Why? Because of having to look to obviously diversify out of the situation.
You see, one business that everybody will agree with, I believe everybody will agree with us or with me, is that the food market, the food business. Everybody eats. Whether we're young, whether we're old. Hassanan, do you like your food?
Yeah.
Do you like shopping?
No.
You don't like shopping, but you just like eating?
Yeah.
Alright, what sort of food do you like eating?
Lasagna.
Lasagna?
Dessert.
Desserts? Everything
Pasta.
else? Pasta, drinks,
Some fruit.
some fruit, some drinks, some desserts.
Yeah.
There you go. A young man loves his food. I love my food. You love your food.
I love my food.
Of course we do. At the moment, people are saying the only businesses that are surviving in COVID is the food industry. Your opinion?
I said there's a lot more besides. You've got the insurance industry, you've got the accountancy industry.
Okay.
You know, there's quite a few that I've seen are thriving in there. Not, don't get me wrong, I can't just be all rosy. There are some that are not succeeding, but there are some staple businesses that are really going to do well, honestly. Like I said, social media right now is a great playing field. Especially times when people are in anxiety as well. People are looking for inspiration, people are looking for motivation, and this is the right time for certain products for them.
So if somebody, for example, is or wants to set up a business, what sort of business would you guide them to go for? Your general and personal experience. So we have millions of viewers watching us. They're probably thinking, right, Zoe's saying that almost everything can be fine if we diverse from one sector to another sector. But then the question will arise, well, Zoe, give us some ideas.
Okay, so straight away, this is the first thing I tell my clients. This is away from COVID, so you have to change it a little bit.
Of course.
First and foremost, it would always be what your passion is.
Okay.
Because if you have passion for it, you will literally put all your all in and you'll actually give it more energy.
Okay.
And people will see that because people buy from people.
Okay.
So if they can see that you're enamored by your product or service, it actually helps them. Now, secondly, you have to do your market research. You have to look at what's working out there right now.
Right.
So if you know that to be a watchmaker, it's not working right now, but to be the actual person who supplies the watches is the way to go, that's what we're talking about. It's just a little tweak. So you could be the watchmaker now, because it's not working that way. You know, maybe people are not having things mended right now and they want to just buy the full product. Look at them becoming the supplier. And that's a way of looking at this.
Do you believe people are fearing to put their hands in their pockets at this particular moment? You've seen banks refusing to give out loans, mortgages. You know, I've had many personal friends that I've spoken to who are on a decent income. They are even being refused, although clean credit checks, so on. They have even been refused by banks for mortgages. Industries, particularly the business sector, are refusing to basically let out the money. Do you believe people are fearing to put their hands in their pocket? And if so, how are they going to...
Okay, so there are some.
Right, Zoe, we'll come back to that about people fearing, but we just have we have a live call. Hello. Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, I can hear you. Welcome to Kanshi TV. Welcome to Your Britain. May I ask your kind name, please?
Yes, it's Charlotte. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Sharon. Thank you very much for your kind call. Right. Fire away. Zoe's listening to you. We're all listening to you. I think 180 countries are listening to you as well. Right. Fire away.
Oh, wow, okay. I just wanted to ask the motivational queen how she stayed motivated during the coronavirus and COVID.
Right, okay, I think she's heard your question alongside millions of other viewers, and I'm sure she'll answer your question. And by the way, while you're on the line, very briefly, are you in some sort of business, or if you don't mind me asking, what do you do with yourself?
I'm looking to start my own business at the moment, but I'll find it difficult, obviously, due to the current situation. So I just wanted to see how she stayed motivated.
Right. I think I've touched upon your question just a few seconds ago, but now, yeah, I have, but I promise you Zoe will answer that to the best of her ability, and make sure you do carefully listen to her, because I believe you, me, she has got huge experience and knowledge in the business world. Thank you very, very much for your kind call, and please do keep safe, throughout this pandemic. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And yourself, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you, bye.
Right, Zoe, I think we touched upon that. When I asked you, people will ask you which way forward. What do we do? I mean, this young lady we've just spoken to, she wants to set up something. She wants to do something, but she doesn't know what to do. That might be just one side of the story. The other side is, where does she get her finances from?
Okay.
Who supports her?
So
I think you've got a few questions.
I can answer, yes, I can answer those for you. So
Nico.
there's so many different options in terms of that. So for one, there's other people. So maybe you may not have money, but there's other people out there that do have money.
Right.
So you've got options such as crowdfunding. So make a case out there. Tell people what it is that you have.
When you say crowdfunding, for people who don't know the term,
okay, so they go online, they make a plea for what it is that they want to get funds in for, and then somebody will then they donate and they'll put that money in, and then you can actually create the business that you want to create.
Right, so it's basically requesting money generally from the general public.
Yes.
That's what you mean by crowdfunding.
Yes.
Right, so that's one way.
Okay, and then there's another way. It's like I said, there's people that may not have money, but there's people who have. So you can do JVs, so joint ventures.
Okay.
So you actually approach them and you offer them a percentage maybe, or some revenue from the business going forward. So you create a contract that suits both of you. So there are another option. Okay. This is without the loan. This is without the banks. There are other options, you know. Okay. So personally, you can also then maybe have a deal with the manufacturers, etc. But you've got to have to build a good relationship first, you know. So I've done that before, and then we do a drop shipping deal. So then they get paid a higher rated kickback of a particular product that's been sold. And that's another way of doing it without putting any money at all in yourself, but you can still reap the rewards.
Right, so basically what you're saying is approach for somebody like this young lady who wants to set up a business, may or may not have the finances. We're just assuming that, but just assume for a second, generally across the board, they haven't got the finances. So you're basically saying crowdfunding is one way, joint venture is another way, and the third way, which is very interesting, to be honest with you, is by going to manufacturers and asking them to supply you with the products, and then charge you a higher rate, and you pay them once you sell your product.
That's right, through drop shipping you can do that.
Right,
yeah,
okay,
there's another way of doing this as well. There's other ways of actually getting the revenue that you need through contra deals. So contra deals is where you swap your skill set.
Right.
So say I'm an accountant, for argument's sake, which I'm not, but if I was an accountant, I could then do accounting services for your whatever your skill is, whatever your trade is, for what you could give me in return. That's without even exchanging money, but you then do the skills. And I've shown lots of people how to do contra deals, and they've actually made their business run off contra deals.
You see, let me just draw your attention before I go on to the next question. Many people at this particular moment are investing in shares and so on, right? The buy-to-let market, which you're very well aware at this moment, is not doing very well. HMOs and so on, due to government rules and regulations, with not much income, not much profit, not much yield on them. So people are saying, rather than me investing thousands of pounds into a business, I rather invest into shares, because at this particular moment, which I keep a close eye on shares as well, people are buying shares which are at a very low level, and then assuming or hoping that these will pick up in the next week or months or God knows what. What would you say to those people who are watching us who are into investments? What's your...
Well, straight away, this is where I'm talking to you about the diversification.
Okay.
You mentioned the buy-to-let. Just because it's not working, don't just hold your hands up and say, right, straight into stocks and shares. Fine if that's what you want to do. However, right now, the area that's really crying out for it, and there's a lot of money in there, a lot more than buy-to-let, is supported living. So,
Can you?
so supported living is where you literally, the same principle, you have a property, but it's literally you, then the local authority wants them to house maybe the under 18s or 16s with supported living for hard to reach teens, because I mentor those. There's one in Walsall that I do, as well, and one here in West Bromwich too. So I actually go there, and they've got a whole system where they bring people in to help them to upskill themselves, plus they house them, and they show them how to live independently. So supported living is something that you can go for tenders right now, and there's a lot of them around. So you go to your local government tender portals, and honestly, if you are in the buy-to-let market, research it, look at it, and understand supported living, because that is the way right now.
I've got another message. Obviously, we're all linked up with messages, and which are coming through on my phone through the website, to the Kanshi TV website. Let me just ask you another question very briefly. We've got a question coming through saying, it sounds all good, however, banks are not letting loans or mortgages. How are we supposed to go into any business? How are we supposed to build upon something when major banks are even refusing? And I touched upon that a few seconds ago, but I think is it Mrs. Khan? Yeah, Mrs. Khan. Her question is, banks are not loaning any loans or mortgages. Basically,
well, we've got to go to the old-fashioned way. So now in my community, we have a thing called partner. So within the community, you save your money within your community, and you help one another to actually then get a lump sum at a certain stage, and you move forward. We have to come back and support one another, and we then look within our own community to see how we can support, and that's it. That's the way to avoid the bank. That's how we did it when we was growing up, and that's how I've managed to get to where I am now.
You see, let me just extend this lady's point a bit forward. But many people are not in the same position what we were. You see what I mean? At this moment, people are struggling. Everybody is struggling at the moment, unless somebody who's got enormous wealth of income or something like that they can afford to borrow money. But generally speaking, and we're not talking £500 or £1,000, we're talking lots of money, talking in thousands. I think that's a very, very difficult position at the moment for everybody.
Not really, not if it's a business deal. If they can see there's a longevity within it, it's just the same. Even though we're in COVID, it's still a business deal. If you can prove that there's going to be some income generated and there's a great business plan around it, then people will invest. It's about, you can find people, not everyone right now is poor. And we all know that not everyone is. There are some that don't have the extra surplus right now.
Do you believe that investors are willing to take that risk by lending the money?
I think so, because I've just invested in a couple of people, so I can only speak from experience.
Zoe, what if things don't, come out the way we're supposed to be coming out? What do we do then?
But the thing is, we can always
go... So if you lend money, for example, many people say, okay, fine, we'll agree with Zoe for a second, right? You've done all your homework, you've done your strategic marketing, you've done your marketing, you've done your online, you've done your website, but for whatever reason, maybe it's your luck, or for whatever reason, your business hasn't lifted.
But that's no different than you was talking about stocks and shares. Everything is a risk. It's just more of a calculated risk.
This risk during this pandemic is more risk, isn't it? What happens then? Say if somebody doesn't...
Yeah, but the thing is, the world is still turning. So you have to give it time. We don't know what next year is going to bring. We don't know what the year after. It might be a massive boom. Right now they're talking about, yes, we're actually in a recession right now, but we don't know what's beyond that. So you've got to have a little faith. You have to persevere sometimes, and although it might seem bleak and grim right now, it's not going to last forever, but you have to stay the course. Without doing that, it's not going to work.
You see, when you say last forever, let me again draw your attention to this. Normal vaccines, which of course on average take 10 years, on average. Now we've had the government trialling this out a couple of months back at universities. It didn't work out. In fact, a couple of days back, they deliberately infected is somebody with COVID. I think they lost their life, if I'm right.
That's right.
Again, the vaccine issue can be years, to be honest with you. When it all started off, it was 3 months. If you remember, 3 weeks, 3 months, then got up to another, give us extra 4 weeks and so on. Again, people have now got the drift that this is not going to work for the vaccines, right? There is no such a vaccine that's going to be created overnight and say, and by the way, if somebody personally asked me, can we inject into you, I would run miles, to be honest with you. I wouldn't have a vaccine injected in me, simple as that. But what I'm saying is, how long do you think, just on roughly, on top of your head, are we talking months? And very honestly, being in business, weeks or years?
See, I wasn't talking about does it last forever, COVID, because that's something I don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately. However, for businesses, businesses, it will last as long as you allow your mindset to allow it in your current state, because you can't just stand still. You can't just complain about what's not working for you. You have to make steps. And if that's not working, there are other avenues. If your business isn't working, and lots of people top up by having a job. I know lots of people right now, business owners, who actually are now working for somebody part-time just to top that up, to keep them going. And it's something, if you want it enough, sometimes you have to sacrifice. Doesn't mean you have to sacrifice forever, but I can't say that it isn't going to last forever for you. But if you have faith, that's all you can have right now.
Let me put it this way to you. The government support, do you think that's enough?
No, it's certainly not. However, let's not focus on the government. Let's focus on ourselves. The only person that you're...
support for businesses I'm referring to.
But you
is that enough?
I don't think it is, but you only have control over what you do yourself.
Right.
So I always say anything that anybody or any government does is a bonus. Beyond that, you yourself are still responsible for you. So that's anything that comes from the government, look at it as a bonus. Don't look at it as the lifeline, the only thing. So look for other ways in which you can support yourself.
More job losses?
There will be more job losses. However, there still will be more intakes too in different industries. So where you were losing jobs, we are still getting jobs elsewhere, however, not at the same rate.
Right, so when you say more intake, very briefly, just give me one example.
So for instance, JLR, my other half works for JLR, so so right now they're having some redundancies, but they've lost all the temp workers, but yet still the jobs are safe, but they will be bringing other people in different parts of the business. So as much as they're losing some in one respect, they'll be bringing them on for when the demand comes in.
And saying that, because you just touched particularly on JLR, but many other manufacturers, they have laid off thousands and thousands of workers right across the manufacturing industry. I mean, now that we touched upon the manufacturing industry, which I did want to do, but due to time, we haven't got time to.
But it's not the actual the contracted workers.
That's exactly what I was going to ask you.
No, they're the temps.
Right, so the people that have been laid off are the temporary staff that have been laid off. So people who have got permanent contracts are still employed. In fact, there's still a lot still on furlough. My other half, he went back 2.5 months ago, but a lot of them are still on furlough. Very briefly, there are, as I said, we've been talking about businesses, and most of the businesses are based on self-employed basis, sole traders or joint partners or partnerships and so on. Very briefly, in the business world, where does our community lie in terms of those who are self-employed, working on self-employed basis, and where they can start from, I don't know, corner shop owners, maybe to slightly bigger businesses, and they're really fearing at this particular moment, and that includes hairdressers, includes little supermarkets, food, vegetables, and so on, and they are really fearing for what's going to happen. In fact, a lot of them, on a serious note, have put the shutters down. They can't survive anymore with the rents, with the rates, and so on. Although yes, we did get government support and we did have a break for rents and so on, but people are still struggling at this moment. What's your message for those, particularly those sole traders and self-employed?
Okay, so the sole traders, and I'll go back to it. So you mentioned hairdressers. So right now, I have one of my mentee clients is now a mobile hairdresser. So they had premises, now they don't. So this is what I'm trying to re-emphasise. is that, yes, in one respect, your shop may close down, but there is another way that you can actually keep going by thinking outside the box. So what she now does, she goes to the properties with the full PPE on, and she can even charge more because of the convenience element. So that's just another way of actually, yes, definitely. And the corner shops, one of the mums at my school, they own a couple of corner shops. They're so busy. They've been the most busiest now throughout COVID than any other time. You know, so it swings in roundabouts. As much as we hear the doom and gloom of small businesses and not succeeding, there are still some success stories, but no one's talking about the success stories out there. And that's a real shame about this. If you're going to have the conversation, let it be a balanced conversation. If we're talking about the BAME community dying in COVID, we'll talk about the actual figures of the other, the other communities that are dying.
That's the next point I was going to come to, and I think that might be the final point as well now. That a couple of months back, certain communities were blamed for COVID. They were targeted. I would use the phrase targeted, and saying that X, Y, Z cultures and communities were affecting many other communities because due to the genetics and so on. What's your opinion on that, very briefly? Because I haven't got any solid evidence on that, but I've got some researches and some figures saying the Asian community, for example, or the African Jamaican community is,
Okay, so I want to tell you that. Think about this. Who are the majority of people on the front line? Who are the majority of people, the cleaners in the hospitals or the corner shop owners? Who are the majority of those people? Their community. So if they're in the front line, it's only natural that they're going to be affected by this, and they're going to get something from this because they were in the thick of things. When everyone else was at home and having the privilege of being at home and being furloughed at home, these people, these real heroes, were sent out in front of everybody, and they unfortunately lost their lives as a result. But instead of recognising that and saying, do you know something, well done to those people, they've been vilified to make it out as if the whole community, the BAME community, are the problem of this pandemic.
In fact, some of the reports which I went previously in my programmes stated very clearly that these communities were not taking government guidelines in force. They weren't accepting them. They weren't following the government guidelines. What would you say about that?
Well, the funny thing is, that's if it is true. Because it's easy. The news is a case of whatever someone says in the news. Is it the truth? That's the thing. Okay. So, all we can ever go off is a secondary evidence. So unless I see it for myself, then that's the only evidence I will ever look at.
Right. I believe we only have a few minutes to go, Zoe. Your final message, I love to, I wish we had more time, we can go on. I did want to talk about more into manufacturing and so on, but I promise you we'll do another program where we'll be focusing more on businesses, particularly with manufacturing, supply chain. We just haven't got the time to cover that in one program. It's very difficult, but supply chain is something very, very important in these awkward times, in these hard times. As I said, 180 countries watching us, millions of viewers around the world watching Zoe Bennett, Businesswoman of the Year 2017. Your message to all the communities, particularly when it comes to business, and particularly how can they continue to protect themselves in this pandemic?
First and foremost, support one another. Help one another, especially in the business community. If you see someone who's setting out there to start a business or is maybe in trouble, and you can see that the business has got legs, come together in synergy and support. And when it comes to the times of pandemic, be there for each other. If you know someone's self-isolating, put care packages together and just be the community that we all can be, and actually go there, drop off these care packages, ask people what it is they need, use online video call more, keep connected. People are suffering in silence because they're alone, they feel lonely, and that anxiety is not helping. So check in on somebody, just be aware that there's somebody that may just need a hello or how are you. So it's all about coming together, supporting, following the guidelines as we are all doing, and just really be the best
Zoe,
version of yourself.
That's a beautiful message, of supporting each other. Thank God in certain communities that's highly rated. A lot of the communities are working close with their family, friends and neighbours, but there are certain families or individuals or communities who are just me, myself and I. We've seen that, and I think the message that you've conveyed just before we end our programme is an exceptional message by stating, look, we're in this together, we're going to come out of it together, but at least support our elders, particularly our neighbours, our families. That's a beautiful message. Once again, Zoe, thank you very much for coming on to Your Britain. Thank you very much for coming on to Kanshi TV. As always, such a pleasure, and I promise you, within the next couple of weeks, we'll be doing more programs. In fact, I will be also, just remind our viewers now that I've decided to do another program, Black Lives Matter. Zoe, you'll be my guest on that program alongside another guest. So we'll be doing that program maybe in the next week or two, but we'll try to plan that program. But I think that's very important that we cover that program. I did cover that program previously, but I feel that covering that program with yourself will be an ideal program for all our communities. So viewers, Zoe will be back on in terms of business programs. She'll be doing many more, but there will be one particular program that we will be covering on Black Lives Matter and the racism here in the UK and in some cases right across the globe. But we'll be focusing in the United Kingdom. Racism is a big issue. We've seen it previously. We've seen it more in COVID-19. We've had bus attacks. We've had school attacks. We've had many stuff going on. So on those words, thank you very much, Zoe. Your final message, you've only got 20 seconds. Youngsters are watching us. What would you like to say to them? How do they protect themselves?
Just stay safe, wash your hands, listen to your teacher, listen to your parents.
Listen to your dad.
Yeah.
Right, what else?
And your mom, stay safe and
don't touch anybody, don't touch...
social distancing.
Okay.
Hand sanitizer.
Okay, hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That was Hassan and Iqbal. Thank you very much for your kind information. There you go, viewers. Thank you very much for watching Your Britain. See you same time, same place next Monday, 5 p.m. UK time. Repeat 2 p.m. every Friday. Look after yourself. Look after your loved ones. Love, respect, peace for everyone. See you same time, same place next week. Bye bye.